All right, so today we're going to talk about just writing equations. We're going to go through all the different ways that we did this already, okay, just as a little review. So you should already have this stuff in your notes, but your slope, remember, is rise over run, or the changes in y's over x's. And then I have your equation right here, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, so there's your slope. That should be in your notes. You should also have your slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. Y is alone. Remember, in that form, your y, or your m, is your slope. Your b is your y-intercept. And then you also have your point slope form, which is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Remember, your m is still your slope, and your point is your x1, y1. Okay, so we're going to practice those. So if we look at number 1, you're given a graph. Now on this graph, notice that it goes through the point. There should be a point down here, sorry. It goes through the point where these grids meet nicely in that corner. So that would be my y-intercept, since that's the y-axis, which is at -2. So since it gives you that y-intercept at -2, we can use our slope-intercept form. The only other thing that we need is our slope, which you can count since it's on a graph. We go up 1, 2, 3, and over 1. So my slope is 3 over 1, which simplifies to 3. So that would be my m. My y-intercept, remember, is your b. So we then just have to plug it in to our slope-intercept form. My m gets replaced with a 3. My b gets replaced with a -2. There's your equation. Okay? Sometimes you're not going to be given a graph, you're going to be given the point. You can either be given the y-intercept as a point, like in number 2, or it could, just be a number. Remember, your y-intercept, your x value is always 0, so your y-intercept is whatever the y value is, and then your slope is m. So once we have that, we can plug it in. We have y equals, my slope is -1/2 x, my y-intercept would be -3. There's your equation. Okay, before we move on, I want you guys to try this one. Let's see, your y-intercept is going to be -5, and your slope is going to be 7. All right, so sometimes you're given an equation where we don't have the y-intercept. So if we look at this purple line, that purple line doesn't continue all the way through and go nicely through the y-axis. So we don't have our y-intercept. But we talked about how we have to have the slope. No matter what kind of equation we're writing, we have to find the slope to find the equation of a line. On a graph, it's not too bad because we can count. So I'm going to count from one point to the next. I go up 1, 2, and then I go over +1. So my slope is 2 over 1, which simplifies to 2. Since I'm not given the y-intercept, I'm going to think about point slope form, which is the y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So I need a point. Does it matter which point I use? No. I'm going to use the one with smaller numbers, so I'm going to use this one right here. So that point is over 1, 2, and up 1. So my point that I'm going to plug in is 2, 1. All right, so slope is labeled m. My point is labeled x1, y1. So for my point slope form, I'm going to replace my y1, my m, and my x1. So y minus my y1 is 1, my m is 2, times x minus my x1 is 2. There's your point slope form. Now remember, to get it in slope intercept form, we have to solve for y. So I have y minus y1. Whoops, let's bring the actual equation over. How about y minus 1 equals 2 times x minus 2. Okay, go ahead and pause the video, solve for y. All right, so you should have distributed your 2 through to get y minus 1 equals 2x minus 4. And then you should have added 1 to each side. So we have y equals 2x minus 3. Once y is alone, that is your equation of the line in slope-intercept form. So you could be asked for either one of these forms. So know the difference between the two. Now sometimes you're not going to be given a graph, but it's a very similar process. So as soon as I see my slope is 1/3, I'm going to put an M. It gives me a point. There's my x1, y1. And then we can plug it into our point slope form. So we have y minus my y1 equals M is 1/3 times x minus my x1. Now let's go through this one together to make sure we know how to solve for y with a fraction. So I'm going to bring my point slope form over since that part's done. Now I'm going to distribute that 1/3. That leaves me with 1/3 x. We always want our slope to be a fraction. 1/3 times 6 is essentially, remember 6 times 1, and then 6 is over 1, so 3 times 1. 6 divided by 3 would be 2. Bring the rest down. I'm going to add 5 to each side to get y equals 1/3 x plus 3. And that would be my slope intercept form. Okay? Now, what happens if you're not given the slope? Remember what we said before. You have to have the slope to find the equation of a line. So the first thing that you should do is find the slope. Now, I don't care if you label and do x1, y1, x2, y2, and you can do the equation, or you can make a table and see how they're moving. I don't care. Whatever makes more sense to you. Just make sure you show your work. So if I use the equation, I'm going to subtract my y's. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. 0 minus 6 is -6. 4 minus 3 is 1. So I'm left with -6. If you like the table method, you can draw your table and write your points. 3, 6, 4, 0. I see my x's are moving up 1. My y's are moving down 6. So change of y's over x's, you get the exact same thing. So my slope is -6. Now, does it matter which point we use? No, it does not. I normally use the one with 0 in it just because it's smaller numbers, but you don't have to. So I'm going to use that one for 0 as my x1, y1. You do not have to, and you might get a little bit different answer depending on which point you use for point slope form, but your slope intercept form will come out the same. So for point slope form, I would get y minus my y1 is 0 equals my m is -6 times x minus my x1 is 4. If I used the other point, okay, so now I want you guys to try that with this point, 3, 6. That's going to be your x1, y1. Go ahead and write the point slope form with 3, 6. Okay, so you should have gotten y minus my y1 is 6 equals my slope is -6 times x minus my x1 is 3. So those will look different. However, when we solve down for slope intercept form, they will come out to be the same. So I'm going to go ahead and solve the first one with for slope intercept form. And this one comes out nice because y minus 0 just becomes a y, and then distribute that -6. So we have -6x, -6 times -4 is plus 24, and y is already alone. So there's your answers. So for slope intercept form, you could have had either of these, and then for point slope form, you could have had either of those. For slope intercept form, they should have come out to both be that. Okay? What happens if you're given a table? Same thing. What do we have to find first? You have to have your slope. So my x's, what's happening? My y's, what's happening? Go ahead and pause the video, find your slope. So my x's, I notice, are going down by 1 each time. My y's are going up by 2 each time, so positive 2. My slope are y's over x's, which simplifies to -2. Now, when you choose your point, remember when you have a table, you have a bunch of points. You have -3, 12, you have -4, 14, you have -5, 16, or -6, 18. You can use any of those. Okay, I normally use the smallest one, so I'm going to go ahead and use -3, 12. So now that would be my x1, y1. My slope is my m. I'm going to plug it into point slope form. So y minus my y1 is 12 equals my slope is -2 times x minus my x1 is -3. Make sure you simplify this all the way. Since I have that minus minus, I'm going to bam bam it to get a plus on the inside. So there's your point slope form. Now I'm going to solve down to get y alone to get it in slope intercept form. So I'm going to distribute that -2. -2 times 3 would be -6. Watch your negatives. I'm going to add 12 to both sides. So my slope intercept form is y equals -2x plus 6. So there's your two answers for that one. Okay. Now a very quick review on straight up and down and straight side to side equations. When it's undefined, that means we are thinking straight up and down. Okay, so visualize this on a graph. If this is my graph and I go over 1, up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, here's my point. If the slope is undefined, that means I'm going straight up and down. So which axis did I cross? I crossed my x-axis at 1, which means my equation is x equals 1. No matter where I am on this graph, on this line, I am at x equals 1. Okay? It's the opposite when your slope is 0. So you guys go ahead and try slope being 0 through the 0.5, -2. What would be your equation? Make sure you're sketching a graph so you can visualize it.